What's a story from your life so outrageous you wouldn't believe it if someone else was telling it? Met a dude on Xbox Live and gamed together for a while. A couple weeks later, I had a party at my apartment, and one of my roommates invited a neighbor. I met him and talked for a little before I realized it was that guy I had been playing Xbox with. It turns out he had lived in the building next door the entire time. Went from Xbox friends to actual friends after that. Similar thing happened to me. Lol, had played Xbox W, a friend I met online for multiple years. Years after I no longer played Xbox anymore, was working at a retail store and was friends W, a co-worker who had a pretty unique name I had only ever heard one other time, the guy I played Xbox with, so eventually had to ask him if he was that person that I had played Xbox W for years so long ago, and he was lol. I was renting an apartment in Sofia, Bulgaria. Next door neighbor was this 20-something guy who blasted house music at all times and had a different girl over every other day, talking to her so loudly, laughing like a jackal. It was getting so bad I could hear his voice in my sleep. So I decided to get a break. Went to Greece for a week. Surprisingly affordable. Now I'm in a small house hotel. Nice room. View of the sea. Suddenly I'm hearing house music from the room next door. What kind of luck is this? I gently ask the two German girls in that room to turn the volume down a little. Then I go out. Drink some ouzo. Come back and now I'm hearing my annoying neighbor's jackal laugh from the German girls' room. Am I losing my mind? I know this guy isn't here. No way. Next day again, I hear his voice through the wall. More house music. Day 3. More of his voice. More ouzo for me and thoughts of madness. Day 4, I go over to the German girls just as my neighbor is cackling the loudest. I see his mug on their laptop screen. In Skype. Turns out the girls met him on some dating site a few days back and now he's sharing his favorite tracks with them. I couldn't even be mad. So I brought over a bottle of ouzo and drank it with the girls and toasted my annoying neighbor in Skype and listened to his demented house music all evening. Accidentally throwing away $1,000 in New York City. It was in an envelope that my partner unknowingly put in recycling, and then going to the recycling center in Staten Island, wading through a literal mountain of papers/magazines/cardboard, and actually finding it. It's my best true story, and I don't think most people believe me. They need to hire you to find that guy's missing hard drive he accidentally tossed with all his Bitcoin on it in Wales. Turned out one of my classmates who we all thought was a 15-year-old girl was actually a 30-year-old woman. How do you do, fellow kids? Google Treva Throneberry. It's a wild story of a woman who just kept pretending to be a runaway teen and going into foster care in various states until she was like 27. There was a similar case in France where this guy had to prove he was under 18, called up a registry for missing children and asked for the name of a missing child he had with him. He then proceeded to impersonate the child. And then slowly realized that the brother to the kid he's impersonating killed the real kid. Sue, sort of like Orphan, where she looked up the list of missing kids and picked the one she looked like most to impersonate, and the mum was always suspicious of her because the brother killed the real girl and the mum covered it up, but she couldn't say she knew this wasn't her daughter because the cops would be like, how do you know, and she couldn't kill her because it would look suspicious to lose two daughters. Lol. When I was visiting Korea, my taxi driver spoke perfect English, was an escaped convict, and got into a high-speed chase with the cops while he was dropping me off. When the chase started, he ran a stoplight and almost got us hit by a truck, then sped up over 100 miles per hour swerving through traffic. He actually sorta juked the cops and dropped me off in a random alley about 2 miles away from where I needed to be. I peed myself a little and I was so shaken when he dropped me that could barely walk. By the way, he put me out of the car at like 5 to 10 miles per hour, it was super fast. He kept making all the stops? I've had a fire alarm go off whilst in an MRI, then a CT scan machine, and then on a radiotherapy treatment table. All of them require you to be inside the machine strapped in, all took place in different hospitals, and it was over the course of a year. By the third time I'd be giving the technicians a heads up, Lamau. Bro, $20 says we have a fire alarm while I'm in the tube. Free money, right? Lols. My dad once shook the tree in our garden and a whole-ass trout fell out of it. To this day I wonder where it came from. I assume a bird dropped it? There aren't any big bodies of water nearby though. Maybe the neighbors chucked it out of a window? Sounds like a dad prank to me. Why was he shaking that tree to begin with? Also, what is an ass trout anyway? It's a bottom feeder. I randomly met the dude that I was born with. Our mothers gave birth to us in the same hospital on the same day and shared a recovery room. 25 years later, on the other side of the country, he was dating my roommate. My brother was dating a girl and things were starting to get serious, so he brought her around to meet the parents. While making small talk, my mom recognized her as the baby of the woman with whom she shared the hospital room when my brother was born. I'm not young, so back then women were usually in the hospital for a few days after birth in general. They even kept in touch for a few years, but as things often do, they lost touch. They are married now with 3 girls. They were born one day apart. I had a class with 2 people in it who were both named unique, but each was spelled a different way, so I guess they were still technically correct. I go by a pretty uncommon nickname. I had a college class, and the first day I was the first to show up and picked my seat. The class fills all the way up except for the seat behind me. We are about to pair up for some exercise and some kid walks in, about 30 minutes late, and sits in the only open seat behind me. We pair up and he introduces himself as my name. Same nickname and last name. I thought I was tripping out, but we had a good laugh about it. He dropped the class after the next week, which was okay because he was pretty annoying. My son went to school with kid who had the same first and last name. They had one class together. The office called for that named student to come to the office. The teacher called the office and said, "Which one? The black kid or the white kid?" The boys both thought it was hilarious and always told people they were brothers. They even applied to the same job once and the interviewer was very confused. I saw my other son recently and we had the biggest hug. Edit misspelled word. I met my wife at her wedding reception. Also, back in college I wrote a short story and threw a fictitious phone number in for a good time call line. Based it on some friends' room numbers. Fast forward 6 years and I'm filling out a job app and they have the same phone number. I've worked for them 23 years now. Please elaborate on the meeting your wife at the wedding reception bit. Were you a guest, groomsman, and she was marrying someone else, and you two married later? Did she take one look at you and decide not to marry her husband? Arranged marriage? Married at first sight? We need answers. I was working part-time at a hotel as a maintenance guy and part-time at a pop warehouse at nights. A guy got in a wreck, so I moved to full-time at the pop warehouse. I'd put in my 2 weeks' notice at the hotel when a new guy started at the front desk fresh back from running to Las Vegas to get married. The hotel manager said, "You're both into computers, I'm sure you dorks will get along." And we did. He pawned his lunch off on me, hated his new bride's cooking too plain, and I joked it was a lot like my mother's cooking. He said I should come over and watch some TV. I suggested Buffy the Vampire Slayer or this new Smallville, and he said, "That's what Trudy watched." I'm more into NYPD Blue and CSI. I was a farm boy. Trudy grew up on a farm as well, while Bill was a city kid through and through. They had a local wedding reception the following weekend, and Bill introduced me to Trudy's parents with, "I'm glad I got a hold of Trudy first, because this guy is perfect for her." And I finally got to meet the girl he kept bragging about. We hung out for 4 years as a trio until Trudy confessed that Bill was abusive. She packed up all her belongings in totes. I swung by the house with the pop truck and threw everything in and moved her into town in about 2 hours. Bill was furious, but he knew he'd finally gone too far. Trudy and I have been married 16 years now and have 2 sons. The outrageous 1-month fiasco that involved me crashing a dog scooter into a pond, being hit in the face with a frozen lime and getting a black eye, my husband getting an AirPod stuck up his nose, our trip to the hospital and the nurse calling the police on him for domestic abuse allegations because I had a black eye and was covered in bruises. I went to urgent care for mosquito bites that had turned into huge blisters, and they made my mom leave the room so they could ask me who was burning me with cigarettes. I told them they were mosquito bites and they didn't believe me. I had to show them pictures I had taken of how the bites looked each day for them to finally believe I wasn't being abused. When I was a newborn and my parents were bringing me home from the hospital for the first time, my neighbor ran outside and pointed a shotgun at my face, and was yelling at my parents, "Take that fucking baby elsewhere, that thing is gonna cry and make too much noise." Needless to say, the police were called, and the SWAT team became involved. And after that, you were the most silent baby ever? For my mother's sake, I'd hope so, but no, apparently I was a terrible baby lamau. I think I've told this story before, but here goes. I was a sophomore in high school and my mom worked at a hospital as head of security. They run drills to test each system, including infant abduction drills. So mom brought me in and I had to go into a room and steal a fake baby. I shoved it in a Lowe's bag and ran to the stairs and made it out. One of the nurses threw a shoe at my head. Probably just me being weird, but trying to sneak out of a hospital like that sounds kind of fun. Penetration testing is an actual field where you get to do this stuff, sneak into businesses and see how far you get before they call security, etc. The military version is, you get hired to physically break into places at night, but that's way more risky in case the cops show up without being told it's a drill.